I think we are moving to a point where we should be able to get something done and get something done relatively quickly. And again, it'll be because of the work of these people that have put together some bills to bring attention to some very specific parts that need some improvement. And I thank you for doing that. I yield the floor.
Thank you, Senator Enzi, and thank you for your leadership and the constructive way you and Senator Harkin are working together. I should emphasize, I said in my remarks, the respect all of us have for Secretary Duncan. He's done a terrific job staying in touch with us without regard to political party. And the President and he have stuck their necks out on some issues that aren't entirely popular with their Democratic constituency. We respect that as well. So as I said, our effort is to take these ideas and recognize we're in the 9th year of a bill that was supposed to be fixed after 5 years and get it done before the end of the year. One example of what we could do, the senator from Illinois will talk about. He's been the leader on expanding opportunities for parents and communities to use charter schools. The House of Representatives acted on that bill yesterday. Senator Kirk.
Joining as part of this effort, I think we need to reform No Child Left Behind. We should focus on making sure we preserve disclosure and the right of parents to know how their schools are doing without destroying the school, without having an AYP measurement that somehow says that most, if not all, schools are failing. As part of this effort, I'm introducing the Empowering Parents Through Quality Charter Schools Act to emphasize charter schools and to make sure that their opportunities are more widely available to parents and children, especially in inner cities. This is a chart that shows the top 10 non-selective, meaning they take everyone, public high schools in Chicago. And they're ranked in order of ACT scores. And you can see here Lincoln Park High School is number 1, not a charter school. But in the top 10, 8 of them are charter schools. And these are in some of the toughest neighborhoods in Chicagoland. That's why this is one of the number 1 issues being discussed right now in Chicago. Mayor Emanuel doing an outstanding job of leading a reform effort to make charter schools more available, to expand the day of instruction, and to expand the number of days in the school year, because right now Chicagoland suffers from some of the lowest numbers of days of instruction in the country. Right now, for example, in Chicagoland, only about 10% of kids have the opportunity to go to a charter school. I think that we should set a goal of at least 50% having that opportunity. Recently, I was able to visit the Noble Street schools, also another school which was represented about 99% African American, overwhelmingly free and reduced lunch kids, and this school is outperforming all of its peers. Despite not having any selection criteria and being able to take kids from all walks of life, including special needs kids. We are seeing something working here. Mayor Emanuel sees it, I see it, and that's why in the House of Representatives, when the companion legislation was considered, 365 representatives, including well over 100 Democratic representatives, supported our charter school bill. We're introducing the companion over here. I'm hoping for equal amounts of bipartisan support, because what we see is working in Chicago can work elsewhere. Now, the charter school movement is generally focused on inner cities. But I want to make sure that charter schools are offered to kids in Peoria, in Springfield, in Rockford, in Metro East. And so the kind of success that we're seeing here, 8 out of 10 top performers being charter schools for non-selective public high schools, is something that I think we should have offered here. And that's why I applaud our ranking member and especially Senator Alexander for putting together this group of bills to offer a higher education performance for America's kids, especially in the tough global political environment that they'll be in. And with that, I yield back to our leader on this joint effort and ranking minority member, and thank them for the opportunity to speak.
Mr. President, how much time is remaining?
15 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. President. Every American knows that every American's job is on the line, and every American knows that better schools mean better jobs. We're ready to work with the President, with our Democratic colleagues, to create an environment for better schools in this country by fixing No Child Left Behind. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor. And I notice the absence of a quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka.
Mr. President.
Senator from Illinois is recognized.
Mr. President, I'd like just to make a brief statement about an entirely different subject.
The Senate is currently in a quorum call.
Oh, I ask that we vitiate the quorum call.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I'd like to speak briefly on the subject of our relations with Pakistan.
Is there objection? Without objection. Senator,
thank you.
permitted.
Earlier this week, I gave a talk based on my service in Afghanistan as a reservist about the growing threat of a new group to our forces in Afghanistan, ISAF, and the Afghan government. It's not al-Qaeda, which is armed and dangerous, but a shadow of its former shadow. It's not the Taliban, which is still extremely armed and dangerous. It's a new group called the Haqqani Network. Recently, there was a high-profile attack on the Afghan government and ISAF headquarters in Kabul, the capital of Afghanistan. The U.S. ambassador 2 days ago then announced that this was the work of the Haqqani Network. That's a very important factoid. And then yesterday, the Secretary of Defense also highlighted the Haqqani and pointed a direct finger at the government of Pakistan and its intelligence service, the ISI. It's all well known that while there are terrorists operating loosely in Pakistan who attack Afghans and Americans, it's the Haqqani Network that enjoys the official support and backing of the intelligence service of Pakistan. I think given this new information, and especially given the statement by the U.S. Ambassador in Afghanistan, Ryan Crocker, and now our Secretary of Defense, Leon Panetta, the Senate should engage in an agonizing reappraisal of military assistance to Pakistan. And we should base our reappraisal on the statements of our own ambassador in Kabul and the Secretary of Defense himself. And with that, I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Senator from Missouri is recognized.
Mr. President, I want to talk about the disaster funding debate that's going on this week.
Without objection.
I appreciate your recognition. And this is a debate that has become the debate as part of the Burma Sanctions Act, which if we were debating the Burma Sanctions Act, I'd also be for Burma sanctions. But in this debate on disasters, Missouri's played an unfortunate leading role in disasters this year of all kinds. We've had floods along the Mississippi River. We've had floods along the Missouri River. Joplin, Missouri, one of the bigger cities in our state, was hit by a tornado. We've evacuated a place in southeast Missouri, a floodway called Bird's Point, where for the first time since 1937, the Corps of Engineers decided that 130 or so thousand acres had to be used as a floodway. All the crops that were already planted and up obviously destroyed as part of that. I was in that floodway for a couple of different days in August, and I will say the resilience of Missouri farmers to get about 80% of that floodway back in soybeans means the economic loss, crop loss, won't be what it was, but the recovery loss is substantial, as is the cost of rebuilding that levee back to the level it was before the Corps exercised a long plan that hadn't been used to take it down. Tornadoes struck St. Louis at the airport and around Lambert Field, in communities around Lambert Field. Tornadoes in Joplin were significant. I've mentioned on the floor before of the Senate that I lived close to Joplin. It was in my congressional district for 14 years. I had an office there. I'm probably as familiar with Joplin as anybody that doesn't live there or hasn't lived there. And as I went to the scene of this tornado, Mr. President, the devastation made a city that I was very, very familiar with, at least a half-mile path, 6 miles across that city, virtually unrecognizable by me or the local police officer that was driving me around. There were no street signs left. Every block looked like the block on either side of it. An incredible amount of devastation. There were 141 people killed, either at the time of the tornado or who within a few days of the tornado died as a result of the injuries. 900 people were injured. A hospital that was destroyed that will cost about $500 million to replace. The high school was destroyed. The Votech school was destroyed. Lots of elementary schools destroyed. 500 commercial properties. 8,000 apartments and homes. And I think destroyed in virtually all those cases would be the right word. Some of them salvageable, most of them not. Homes, churches, elementary schools, the Catholic school, all destroyed by that tornado. And while we make headway every day finding housing for people in that community that were affected by the loss of those 8,000 homes, and while the schools were up and running by the day schools were scheduled to start 90 days later, in an incredible way, just looking for whatever space was available and turning that into schools for this year, there's clearly a lot to be done. And this exceeds the capacity of an individual community or even a state to do what needs to be done. Now, I'm in the process and have been for some time now of discussing with GSA the exact right request to be sure that we're not declaring disasters as national disasters that aren't national in scope, that we haven't gotten into a habit of just saying, well, that's a disaster, the governor ought to send a request to the president and the president ought to grant it, and we don't want to be doing that when a state or a community really could handle the problem. But we do always want to be sure that we have the resources necessary when states and communities can't possibly handle this kind of problem by themselves. The tornado I talked about was one. Flooding in the entire Mississippi Valley watershed, which is, I think, the 4th largest watershed in the world, and whether it was the Missouri River or the Ohio River or the Mississippi River itself or the Arkansas River, all of this flooding that occurred this year has set a recovery number that really does require national involvement. And if we don't recover from these floods, the right kinds of things don't happen. I had a county commissioner tell me over August that the factory doesn't open until the highway opens. And the highway doesn't open until flood protection is guaranteed. And flood protection isn't guaranteed until we appropriate, Mr. President, the money. And, you know, we should and appropriately are focused on jobs as the #1 priority in the country today, private sector jobs. But there are a lot of private sector jobs in my state and others that have not been there for months now because the factory's closed or the business is closed, and that factory's not going to open again until people can get to work. And people aren't going to be on the highway to get to work until the levee's rebuilt, and the levee's not going to be rebuilt until the Corps of Engineers has the money to do the job that they're supposed to do and meet their obligations. The Corps' responsible for taking care of some of our most pressing needs, and whether it's restoring the levee at Bird's Point or levees in northwest Missouri and Holt County, which has 165,000 acres, more than half the county, underwater. And a lot of that has been underwater now for 3 or 4 months. I talked to a farmer in my office yesterday who went to his own home for the first time in 3 months by driving a tractor over some fairly high water areas, but passable areas. His home hadn't been flooded, but everything around it was, so he hadn't been there in 3 months when we talked yesterday until he went this week. And so whether it's water along the entire Missouri River, which has been in flood stage through the month of August, recovering from what's happened on the Mississippi River, we need to do our job. In our case of the Missouri River, this hasn't been a 1 month, 1 week flood, or this is a 3- and 4-month flood. I don't remember a time ever, and in fact I'm not aware of a time ever, when the entire Missouri River from the Missouri border in the northwest corner of the state to St. Louis was in flood stage the entire month of August. And in some cases has been in flood stage now for what is 4 months. Community development block grants that help with disasters provide communities a short-term and long-term way to meet disaster recovery. Disaster community development block grant funds can pick up where FEMA leaves off, and I hope, Mr. President, that's part of our plan as we look for this disaster bill, which I'm intending to support, or the final or another disaster bill that we can agree to with the House. Needs to be sure that we make it possible for these communities to do what they couldn't do on their own or couldn't even do with state assistance. In Joplin, things like underground utilities and storm sewers and sanitary systems of all kinds, owner-occupancy programs to get people who owned a house but may never own one again because the house they owned, through, frankly, their own inability or their oversight or their decision not to have insurance. You know, if you own a house and you don't have a loan, there's no banker to tell you you have to get insurance. And we'll have some people that are negatively affected by that, but that was a decision they made. However, getting them into a house that they don't own is something that there are government programs that are designed to help. Community development block grants allows qualifying communities to meet local matches and local needs with a whole lot less red tape than a lot of the other things that the government does. And of course, FEMA funding is with the most recent Hurricane Irene. Suddenly FEMA says, well, I know we made a lot of commitments to other communities that are already in progress, but we now have to turn to the new disaster. And I appreciate turning to the new disaster, but you can't forget that a community has problems they can't deal with that we said we were going to help with just because the TV satellite truck has gone somewhere else. And so I think it's important that FEMA meet its obligations. As I said before, I think it's important that on an ongoing way, we're sure that we have a standard for natural and national disaster that truly is national in scope, with thousands of acres of Missouri farmland still underwater, with communities trying to recover from tornadoes, with commitments that FEMA has told them to move forward on and now suddenly doesn't have the money that they'd already committed. We need to be concerned about that. Programs like the watershed emergency protection and the conservation emergency protection that are in this bill that really were in the Ag Appropriations bill that the committee voted out earlier this week will have a big impact on meeting these obligations. And so, Mr. President, I just say that despite the unprecedented year, my state and Americans everywhere are responding to these disasters, but this is a time when the federal government needs to do what the federal government has said they are there to do. And hopefully we'll do this with this bill or some other bill that comes quickly that allows these communities to meet their needs, these farm families to get back to work, these factory workers to see the factory doors open again. I am supportive of this effort and would yield my time.
Senator from North Carolina is recognized, and without objection in the majority's time, only 4 minutes is remaining.
Mr. President, am I incorrect that the other side has a speaker coming at 11 o'clock?
The chair does not have information about that.
Okay. Mr. Speaker, I'll take whatever time Mr. President, I'll take whatever time the President gives me, and will yield when I need to the other side.
Without objection.
Let me just add to what my good friend from Missouri talks about, and that's about the federal commitment to disaster. North Carolina happens to be one of those states that is probably the most recent. And we welcome the attention of FEMA, but we also have been the last disaster before. And just like he expects the promises to be fulfilled, even though we're first in line now, we expect the promises to be fulfilled to those who are already out there. Our country is great enough to do it. It is the greatest country in the world, but it means we've got to do it in a responsible way, and part of that means that we need to pay for it. And I hope my colleagues will join what I think will be a House effort to expedite the funding needed for disaster relief, but to do it in a way that we don't charge future generations because of our fiscal irresponsibility. Now, I had the opportunity to participate in a colloquy earlier on reforms to K-12 education. And I'd just like to take the few remaining minutes that I've got to talk a little bit more about that. Because I think to some degree we hear about education and the failures of K-12. Senator Kirk alluded to some charter schools in Chicago. I want to mention a school nobody hears about. It's called the KIPP Academy. Technically, it's a charter school. It was started in Houston, Texas, and then expanded. Its second location was in New York City. Well, its third location was targeted to be Atlanta, but halfway between Atlanta and New York, they found a little rural county in North Carolina. It's called Northampton County, and a little community there called Gaston, North Carolina. The last place you would expect a Texas-innovated charter school to say, let's put a facility here. Predominantly minority, clearly below the average income level of every county in North Carolina, challenged for economic development. They just don't have the infrastructure. But KIPP looked at it and said, you know, no child should go without what we're out there to offer. And today, the success rate out of that school is off the chart. But it also is in every KIPP location that's opened up. And when you have successes like that, whether they're in Houston, Texas, or New York City, or Gaston, North Carolina, the responsible thing is to stop and take a breath and ask yourself, what have they figured out that either we haven't in Washington, or what flexibility do they have that we don't give everybody else? And when you walk into a KIPP school, it's markedly different as soon as you walk in the door. Most kids are in uniforms. The school day is longer. The teachers are partners in education, which begs me to talk a little bit about Teach for America, a program that many members of Congress support. Teach for America challenged the next generation of kids who want to be educators to commit a certain portion of their life in these at-risk locations. It's a program we ought to support because its standards for its teachers exceed the definition we have for highly qualified. As a matter of fact, not only do their credentials make them one of the best individuals to put in a classroom, you match that with their passion for their students to succeed, and all of a sudden you've got a formula for success regardless of the socioeconomic conditions of the child that came. Well, I fear that Teach for America is not going to get the attention of Congress that it should. Yet across this country, when you find successful, qualified teachers, they've come out of this program. And the commitment to be there for 2 years or 3 years or 5 years is no longer a contract that they're waiting for the end of. They're looking for the opportunity to make this a career. And you know, it's those teachers, those Teach for America graduates that are finding their way to being the principals of schools, to being elected on the school board, to being involved in areas that for once, now these Teach for America graduates are challenging traditional education to live up to what the obligation is they've got, and that's to make sure that every child has the foundational education they need to compete. And it really doesn't matter whether the example I talk about is the KIPP Academy charter model that was started in Houston, or whether it's the Noble Street charter that was created in Chicago. all of these examples weren't created here. They weren't created in Congress or in Washington. Yet, what typically we do is we try to import the solution from here. Now, I'll be the first to tell you, a principal is much closer to your children than Congress of the United States. They're much closer to the school. They're much closer to the school system. They have greater influence on the outcome. Where have we been influencing education? We influence it on the input side, not the output side. Because we say, hey, here's some money. We've got some money, but you can only use it for this because we've determined this is the solution to the problem. KIPP sort of broke the mold. They said, our mission is to educate every child. We want to see them succeed. Let me give my colleagues an example. In Charlotte, North Carolina, they opened a KIPP Academy, K through 8, next door to a traditional K through 6 school. There's no way anybody can look at it and say, this drew kids that were in it, drew kids from exactly the same neighborhood. But if you look at the performance side by side physically, the performance of the kids in the KIPP far excel the performance of the kid in the traditional public school system. Why? Because KIPP officials have the flexibility to design how they educate those children. The goal at the end is the same, to meet a standard of performance, to meet an educational level that's set nationally. Well, to me, it only makes common sense for us to see the ones that exceed what the goals are that we set and ask, how do we import what they do into the rest of our K through 12 system? Part of it is recognizing the fact that up here we don't have the solutions. We're merely a financial partner. And that's one of the reasons, Mr. President, that this morning I introduced a bill. And what that bill does is it takes 59 pots of money, 59 separate programs that were funded last year. And in one area, we call it the Fund for Improvement of Teaching and Learning. You see, we take 59 programs and we combine them into 2 pots of money. One of them, teaching and learning. The second one, safe, healthy students. In the teaching and learning area, we've consolidated about 24 funding programs into one. And we've said to local educators, you can use this money however you want to if your focus is teaching and learning. And you can pull out of the other pot any monies you need for programs that address safe and healthy students. Now, we went a step further. We said, if one of these pots of monies doesn't work for you, then we'll give you 100% transferability from one pot to the other. So if your objective and your need is greater in teaching and learning, we'll give you the ability to take all the safe and healthy student money and throw it over in the teacher and learning pot so that you can access more funds. In addition to that, there may be some communities across the country that need additional help in Title I, those at-risk students. We allow 100% transferability of both funds to Title I. So for those individuals across the country that are concerned with Title I, not only do we not touch it, we leave it like it exists, we make it available to receive additional funding if a school system decides to do it, not a bureaucrat in Washington, D.C. So under the Fund of Improving Teaching and Learning, states and local school districts may use the funds for activities and programs that meet the purposes of the fund for the improvement of teaching and learning and their unique and individual needs. These may include evaluation systems for teachers and principals that take into account data on student academic achievement and growth of a significant factor. Exactly what Senator Isaacson was talking about, the need for accountability. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to take a majority of the responsibility for accountability and send it to the local school system. all we can see is numbers up here in comparison to what our goal was for people to hit. What I'm concerned with is that a community take ownership in the performance of their school systems, because that community is reliant on their success for their future. Mr. Chairman, I see that my colleague from, he's going to switch with you, so I'll continue. So my hope is that school systems and communities around the country will see this as a tremendous opportunity to once again not only take control of local education, but to be empowered to make decisions on the way that they teach our kids. It reforms teacher and principal certifications, recertifications, licensing and tenure, alternative routes for state certification of teachers and principals, including mid-career professionals from other occupations, former military personnel, and recent college or university graduates with records of academic distinction who demonstrate the potential to become highly effective teachers and principals. You see, there's this whole pool of people that we exclude because they didn't go through a traditional method of being classified teacher. Yet their base of knowledge, their expertise, and I would suggest their passion in many cases exceed those that might be in that classroom today. Is it reasonable to believe that a pharmacist has the institutional knowledge to teach chemistry? I hope so, because we trust them every day when we go into that pharmacy. If a pharmacist feels impassioned enough that he or she wants to go in to a high school and teach chemistry, what they might lack in the educational process of becoming a teacher, certainly they have the knowledge, but more importantly, they have the passion to want to be in there. And more importantly, an understanding of why success of that student is absolutely vital. Performance pay systems, differential, incentives, and bonus pay for teachers in high-need academic subjects, specialty areas, teachers in high-poverty schools and districts, teacher achievement initiatives that promote professional growth, multiple career paths, and pay differentiation. You know, everywhere else in the world, we pay bonuses for performance. As a matter of fact, in the government, we pay bonuses when people don't perform. I haven't quite ever figured that out, but when we introduce bonuses, it's not based upon whether somebody or an agency or a department succeeded. It just becomes part of their annual stipend. We've got to revisit that. But why would we institute it in government and then suggest that when you import this into K through 12 education that somehow it's wrong? The only reason it's wrong is because the teachers union doesn't like it because they don't negotiate it. Well, that's got to change. Because the teachers union doesn't know our children. And the truth is, the only reason the majority of the teachers actually join the union is because they're the only source of liability coverage, of liability insurance that teacher can get. And the fact is, you and I wouldn't teach in a classroom without liability insurance based upon the accusations and charges that some families come up with against teachers. If you don't believe me, ask them. Maybe what we need to do is look at a federal umbrella where we allow teachers to access liability insurance from us, maybe contract it with a third-party insurer, and give them the opportunity to go into that classroom and only be concerned with educating children. You know, I've never had anybody from Teach for America talk to me about liability coverage. They only come in and talk to me about the success of their students, about the need to expand programs at work, about the need for flexibility at the local level, because they've gone to multiple school districts and they do things differently because that's where the administration told them they had to go to get their federal money. I'm suggesting a radical change, taking 59 programs, put it into two pots, shake it up and say, you pick what's best for the school system you're in. And Safe and Healthy Students block grants, the local districts could use the fund for activities and programs that meet the purposes of safe and healthy students and their unique and individual needs, which may include but are not limited to drug and violence prevention activities and programs, before and after school programs, including summer recess periods and programs that extend the school day, week, and the school calendar year, school-based mental health services. You know, some of these sound eerily familiar because we've heard in our community people say, you know, we're not doing enough in mental health. Well, that may not be the issue in the community next to us. This now allows the flexibility for the school systems that need to access it. I think every member up here wants to make sure that there are after-school opportunities for the many families that both husband and wife work. Up till this point, we said, here's the program, you have to use this program. Now what I'm saying is, here's the money, you decide what program best fits your school system. It may not be at the local rec center. It may actually be in the school. Think about it. It's already a facility that we own. We're going to have to heat it. We're going to have to cool it. Why not utilize it other than just during the meat of the education day? School-based, emergency intervention services following traumatic crisis. You know, it seems like every year we've got these events that happen, and sometimes we forget the effect it has on these students. I just talked earlier about eastern North Carolina and the effects of Hurricane Irene. I've got communities right now where people have not been able to return to their home. The road's gone. Power's not back on. The only access is by ferry. Don't for a minute believe this doesn't have an effect on a fifth grader. Maybe school had only been in effect for about a week, but they're traumatized from it. If it's identified by a school system, now they've got the flexibility to treat that. Because I can assure you if they're traumatized, the ability to learn is probably minimized. Programs that train school personnel to identify warning signs of youth suicide. Now, I'd like to suggest, Mr. President, that doesn't exist. And the truth is we know that it does. And in many cases, it's identified by the people that spend the most time with them, and that's their teachers, coaches, and administrators. But they really don't have the capacity to intervene in any way, shape, or form. Now the flexibility is at least there. I'm not suggesting that any of these areas are things that school systems have to do. But I think for once we have now laid a buffet out and said, you pick and choose what works. If I could best summarize where I think our focus should be in Washington on K through 12 is on the outcome. Are our kids learning? Last year, about 66% of our nation's high schoolers graduated on time. North Carolina, it was barely over 70% graduated on time. Now, let me assure those pages that are here and young folks that might be listening to this, there's a federal law that says every company has to accept an application from somebody that's looking for a job. There is no federal law that says you have to interview that applicant. And if you're an employer today and you've got 100 applications and 98 of them have a high school diploma and 2 of them don't, I can assure you the 2 that don't have the high school diploma are not going to be invited back for an interview. They're out of the pool of selection because that has become the base minimum for consideration of a job that might have any upward mobility. Doesn't mean that every child has to have a 4-year degree. But it does mean from a standpoint of the business world, business has sort of cut it off and said, our threshold is a high school diploma. A high 60% of our kids are not graduating from high school on time. If I was on the floor today talking about health care, we would call this an epidemic, and we would do whatever we needed to do to fix it. But no, this is education. This is somebody else's children. I have already raised mine. I've educated mine. I would tell you this is the fabric, the future fabric of America. We either fix education or the rest of the world will clean our clock economically in the future. The secret to long-term success is making sure that we field a team of highly gifted, knowledgeable Americans. If we plan to do that with a high 60% of our kids with barely a high school diploma, I will assure you the rest of the world will see that as an opportunity to surpass us and to bury us. We've got an opportunity to fix it now. We talked earlier about No Child Left Behind. The right direction of legislation that was severely implemented incorrectly. It could have been a real winner if people embraced it, but they didn't. And now 9 years later, 4 years after we were supposed to go in and assess its success, make its changes, reauthorize it, we're in the 9th year and we're still struggling to try to put together a reauthorization bill. And in large measure because up till this point everybody's wanted to try to create a Washington bill to initiate solutions to elementary and secondary education versus a local approach that Washington is a partner in that provides flexibility and imagination. Mr. President, we're going to spend a lot of time between now and the end of the year because I think it's absolutely vital that we get reauthorization in 2011. I don't think we can let another class of students suffer through the lack of flexibility in the school systems that they live in. Senator Kirk talked about the need to expand charter school opportunities. I'm for it. I co-sponsor the bill. But just because there's been a private alternative that works, let's also face the reality. We're not going to put every child in America in a charter school. We might ought to, but we're not. And unless we want to up front say everybody that's not in a charter school is going to suffer and they're not going to have the educational foundation that kids over here have, then we better do both at the same time. Provide that new avenue of education, which is expansion of charter school opportunities, challenge the private sector like KIPP stepped up, and design a school that works. And at the same time, look at the public side of it and say, what do we need to do as a country? And I would suggest to you that when we honestly look at that and we focus on outcome versus input, what we'll find is that we've got to empower more that local community. We've got to challenge business leaders in that community to hold the school system accountable. We've got to challenge parents to actually look at the performance of their children and to hold those principals and administrators and teachers accountable for the performance of their kids. We've got to make sure that a community sees the success of education as the ability for that community to grow in the future. The worst thing that a member of Congress can hear is to go into a community where they tell you when their kids graduate from high school, they never return. They never return because the business opportunities aren't there. Usually that's rooted in the fact that K through 12 in that community doesn't work. Because wherever you've got an educated workforce, you've got a company looking to make investments. I've heard my colleagues say that North Carolina has unfair advantages at economic development, that we've got 58 community colleges, and that gives us something to sell that everybody else doesn't have. We've got the coast and the beach, the mountains and the beach, and that's not something everybody has. It's all a good thing to sell, but let me tell you what North Carolina's got. Let me tell you why companies around the world are investing in North Carolina. It's because we produce the second largest pool of graduates of higher education annually of any state in the country other than California. When a company invests $1 billion in North Carolina, they know every year they can reach into the graduate pool and that they have a shot at getting the cream of the crop of those students. Well, why would it be any different that when a company looks at locating, if they look at a community that has a pitiful performance in K through 12, why would they ever think of making the investment there? They're going to make the investment where the future workforce is available, and if they believe that the kids graduate and leave and never come back, then they're going to look for where those kids move to make that investment. If we want to keep communities alive, whether they're in Ohio or North Carolina, we've got to find a way to make K through 12 a success in every community, big and small, urban and rural. And it starts by legislation that empowers those local school systems. And more importantly, shifts accountability from Washington and puts it back into the community, the responsibility of the officials, the business leaders, and most importantly, the parents. I'd like to thank the President for accommodating me this morning. I noticed the other speaker didn't come in, so I'm thrilled that I was given the extra time. I would urge my colleagues over the months to come to pay attention to the K through 12 reauthorization. There'll be many proposals that are out there. Not all will work, and we're not assured that any are certain to succeed. But if you look for guidance, talk to the people that are closest to the problem. And the one thing that they're screaming for today is the flexibility to put the money where it can have the greatest effect on the outcome of education. And that's this legislation. I thank the President. I yield the floor, suggest the absence of quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka.
senator from California is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent that the quorum call be dispensed with.
Without objection, so ordered.
And I ask to speak in morning business up to 20 minutes.
Without objection, so ordered.
Mr. President, I come here, frustrated, angry, disturbed that our Republican colleagues are holding up 3 crucial bills, and America needs to hear this. They are stopping us from completing our work on our emergency FEMA bill. The monies are needed throughout this country to rebuild the damage from the storm, a lot of it infrastructure, sewer plants, water plants, roads, bridges, highways. We see pictures of what is happening in places like Vermont, where, as Senator Leahy told us yesterday, a woman that he talked to has to drive an hour and plus for her chemotherapy because the road is gone and it used to take her 5 minutes. We need to fix that road. We need to fix the roads, the bridges, the highways, the sewer systems, the water systems, the schools that get harmed in these natural disasters, and the Republicans are holding up the bill to let us do that. We have holes on more than one. The highway bill, known as the transportation bill, and the FAA, our nation's aviation bill. And here's the real shocker. The FAA and the transportation bill, which have been merged into one bill, have come over from the House of Representatives, and the House relented on the numbers. They are at current levels of spending. They are clean extensions, which we wanted, but the Republicans over here will not let us get to those bills. Now, tomorrow, the FAA authorization for the airports, to fix up the airports, rebuild the airports, that expires. So there's no fee as of tomorrow, and we have to stop midstream our airport improvements that are going on. It's called the Airport Improvement Fund. They already shut that down once. I went around my state and saw projects, safety projects, stop midstream, and now they're doing it again, right over here. The Republicans, right over here, holding up the FAA bill again. And it means 70,000 jobs lost on Friday night. They're holding up the highway bill, the transportation bill, which I'm so proud in our committee. We got the extension. Everybody agreed to it, Republicans and Democrats in the committee. Republicans are holding it up now on this floor. It's a clean extension. It's 1.8 million jobs, everybody. 1.8 million jobs are relying on that extension. It's come over here from the House. Take it up and pass it. Oh, no. Oh, no. There they go again. Stopping progress in this country. And I'll tell you why I'm so particularly frustrated. It has to do with the rebuilding that's going on and that has gone on in Iraq and Afghanistan. With American dollars, not one Republican ever objected. And let me show you the pictures. Let me show you the pictures. This is a picture, Mr. President, of a new water treatment plant that's been built in Nasiriyah, Iraq, at a cost of $277 million American dollars. Not one Republican said, stop this. Not one Republican said, pay for it by cutting some other program. What's going on? Let me show you the picture of a water treatment plant near the border of Mexico in my state, in California. It's old. I visited this treatment plant. It got hurt in an earthquake. And FEMA, the bill they're holding up, will pay to finish up this water treatment plant, which has got to be fixed before another earthquake hits us, and we know that's what's happening. So they were fine with building a water treatment plant in Iraq, not a complaint, not a murmur, not a word, not an amendment. But we have to fix our water treatment plants here with FEMA bill, and they're holding the bill up. And everybody knows that, because we could have taken care of that yesterday. So that's an example. Here's another example. This is a picture of road construction in, I want to say this right, Kapisa province, Afghanistan. Everyone is very proud America has built a road there. We have spent a lot of tax dollars in Afghanistan and Iraq. And I'm happy for the people there that they have a road, and God, we pray that nobody blows it up. But I got to tell you, if you're going to build roads in Afghanistan, you better build roads here in America, or the American people are going to rise up and say, who are you fighting for? I never heard one Republican say, oh, they're building a road in Afghanistan. That's an earmark. That's an earmark. Let's stop it. That's a problem. Let's stop it. We're spending X number of dollars. Let's cut another program. Never a word. But now we have our highway bill right now coming over from the House. They changed their mind over there. They did not cut it. It's current levels of funding. It's a good bill. It will last for 6 months funding. It will preserve 1.8 million jobs, and the Republicans are holding it up right now. Why do you think this chamber is empty? Why do you think I'm here letting off steam? Because we're not voting. Let us vote. You don't like the highway bill? Vote against it. You don't like it? That's fine. Vote against it. Let us vote. 90 people will vote for it probably. Let us vote. So here you have the picture of the excitement around a new road. And let's take a look at another picture of a road in my home state. In January and February of 2010, Mr. President, California was hit by terrible winter storms and flooding and mudslides. This picture shows a road that was blocked after these storms. Now, these storms hit us in many counties: Imperial, Los Angeles, Riverside, Calaveras, San Bernardino, Siskiyou. All of these counties declared emergencies. They're all waiting for the funds to rebuild a road that looks like this. Impassable, shutting people down. A lot like the roads in Vermont now and other places. They're holding up the FEMA bill. They're holding up the highway bill. They're holding up the federal aviation bill. And it's wrong. I never heard them say, strike that road that we're building in Afghanistan. It's an earmark. But they're holding up. They're holding up the 3 bills we need to do. So now I'm going to show you another program. This is a brand new air traffic control tower being built in Mosul, Iraq at a cost of $10 million. You can see it's almost ready. The scaffolding is on it. It's been built. I never heard one Republican say, oh, wait a minute, let's strike some other money somewhere else to pay for this air traffic control tower. I never heard one Republican object to building this air control tower in Iraq. Not a word. But when it comes to our air traffic control towers, you heard plenty. They stopped us from moving ahead with the FAA reauthorization before we left for the summer break. It resulted in 70,000 people being laid off, and here's one of my towers in Palm Springs. stopped in the middle, shut down in the middle. The workers had to leave. They lost money, the contractor did. The workers, some of them went off to other jobs. They had to hire new workers. I stood in front of this tower. I stood in front of a tower in Oakland. I went to Los Angeles and saw the work stoppages that occurred on the Tom Bradley new terminal because the Republicans shut us down. And now today, we come back, we all think we have a new attitude around this place. We're shut down again. And we have 24 hours to get this FAA bill done, or 70,000 workers will be out again. And we have until September 30th to pass the transportation bill, or 1.8 million workers will be out of work. Now, we have heard complaints from the other side as to why they're holding it up. So let me give you some of that argument. One of our senators from Oklahoma, Senator Coburn, says he wants to hold up the transportation bill, which includes transportation and FAA, because he doesn't like one part of the program. 2% of the funds go to things he doesn't like. Well, he has every right to that opinion and every right to work with us on an amendment and get it done. But he's holding it up. We could have had that amendment yesterday. He doesn't like the Transportation Enhancements Program. And for the record, there are a number of things in that portion, which is a relatively small amount of the bill, 2% of the bill, and we are reforming that section next year when we get to the new bill. But he's holding it up. Now, he's wrong to hold it up because of what I told you. He's putting at risk all of these safety improvements at our airports. He's putting at risk, 1.8 million jobs on the transportation bill. He's putting at risk 70,000 jobs on FAA because he doesn't like this program. Now, he also misled people. He said that we spend 10% of our transportation money on this Transportation Enhancements Program. We do not. We spend 2%. 10% is not 2%. He went on to say that safety should be a top priority, and we agree. But he doesn't understand what the Transportation Enhancements Program is. It is about safety. It is about safety. The Transportation Enhancements Program is mainly about saving lives by preventing bicycle and pedestrian fatalities. That's what it does. It says to the states, we have a pot of money here. If you want it, you need to make sure you make safety improvements for pedestrians and bicyclists. Pedestrians and bicyclists account for 13% of traffic fatalities nationwide, with more than 47,000 pedestrians killed in the 9-year period 2000 to 2009. That's equivalent of a jumbo jet crashing every month. So the safety enhancements supported by the program Senator Coburn wants to eliminate are needed to prevent these deaths. Bike paths and pedestrian walkways are important. 50% of trips are 3 miles or less. 12% of all trips are made by bicycling and walking, and bicycle commuting has increased by more than 40% between 2000 and 2008. So why on earth does he want to hold up this critical bill and the FAA bill, because they're married together, to say he's for safety when he wants to eliminate this whole program, which is dedicated to safety for our pedestrians and our bicyclists, 47,000 of whom perished because we don't have these safety enhancements in place. All Americans benefit from the program he wants to eliminate. We strengthen local economies, we improve the quality of life, we protect the environment, and he's willing still, because that's what he's doing by holding this up, he's risking shutting down our nation's entire surface transportation system, as well as critical FAA programs, and more than 1 million jobs, because he doesn't like this program. Well, you know something, every one of us here we have pretty big egos. You know, you get here and, yeah, it's important. Set it aside. You don't like something, offer an amendment. Don't hold up all of these bills. It's wrong. Because if we do what they did, shutting down the FAA, it makes a rough economy rougher. And it stalls us from doing the work we have to do. No one stalled the airport's improvements in Iraq. No one stalled over there on the Republican side the road improvements in Iraq. No one stopped improvements in Afghanistan. No one stopped water system improvements in the war zones. But somehow, when it comes to America, well, we better cut this and cut that and offset this and offset that. We have a budget. We're going to live by it. We have an emergency. If you look at Webster's dictionary's explanation of what an emergency is, here it is. This is Webster's definition. An emergency, 1, an unforeseen combination of circumstances or the resulting state that calls for immediate action. Mr. President, Webster's dictionary has it right. This ought to be put on the desk of every one of my Republican colleagues. Another definition, an urgent need for assistance or relief. So when there's an emergency, you step up to the plate and you solve the problem. Just ask Senator Landrieu, who's been leading the battle on this FEMA bill. You can't tell people out there that they only have 30 days of funding, because you have to enter into a contract. It may take 3-4 months to rebuild a bridge. It may take 6 or 7 months to rebuild a water treatment system. But that's the way they approach it over there when it comes to America. When it comes to funding wars and rebuilding the zones, I don't hear a peep out of them. Not a peep. Well, I say it's time for America. We have a choice. We can stand up for America right now, today. We can pass these 3 bills. The FEMA bill, which gives our governors the assurances and our people in the states the assurances that FEMA will team with them and do what it takes to rebuild after these horrifying emergencies, which, by the way, are becoming more and more frequent because of climate change, but that's another battle for another day. I mean, that's another battle for another day. Unfortunately, science in this body here takes a back seat to politics. And the special interests who want to say, oh, climate change, no big deal. We need to protect our turf. That's what they say. And we've done nothing. The President has done what he can, and bless him for it. Fuel economy, all these things, but it gets worse and worse and worse. We've done nothing. I tell you, I got 4 grandkids, and I am so hoping in the rest of the time that I have to be here in this body and on this earth that I can get us moving on this climate change. But oh no. So I guess we sit back while we see more and more extreme weather emergencies. And we see extreme weather emergencies. If the other side doesn't want to do anything about the cause of it, fine, that's their choice. They have to live with themselves. They can at least help us adapt to these problems. And that means paying to fix up our roads, bridges, highways, our water systems, our sewer systems, all of these things that get exposed to these weather emergencies. And in the longer run, do you know, Mr. President, that 70% of our highways, of our bridges are deficient? 70% of our bridges are deficient. And I want to thank my ranking member, Senator Inhofe, on the Environment and Public Works Committee. He and I don't see eye to eye on the environment. That's an understatement. But when it comes to the infrastructure, we agree. And he talks about the tragic death of a woman. A young woman was walking, and a bridge literally fell apart, and it fell and killed her. Now, this is America. 70% of our bridges are deficient, and we have colleagues holding up this bill. I say shame on them for doing that. It's outrageous. We finally get the House to come to us, to our number, to freeze spending. I thank them for that. They came to their senses. They realized that we need to build our highways. We need to maintain our airports. They sent us a bill that's good. On FEMA, they're not so good. On FEMA, they're doing a bad thing over there. They're trying to cut programs that create jobs to pay for these emergencies. That's a whole other deal. But right here today, we have a bill for FEMA that will do the job. You know, I said in my last talk about FEMA, the emergencies that we face is if your neighbor's house is on fire, don't waste time and fight about the cost of the garden hose. You'll get that later. Your garden hose helps them and you feel they are a part owner, you can discuss it later. Get out the garden hose, put out the fire, and everybody is going to be okay. Playing games with these things, Mr. President, is not right. It is beneath the dignity of the people of America who think we are a bunch, let me repeat, who do not rate us very highly. That's an understatement, too. How much lower can you go than 13%? Well, I will say this. If we can't do these bills, we don't deserve to be 13% popular. We don't. We have certain basic responsibilities. And I am sick and tired of paying for roads and bridges and embassies and buildings and everything else in Iraq and Afghanistan. We have given those people our finest. They have bled, they are still bleeding, and they have to take responsibility for their own nation. We have to take responsibility now for our nation. Time is short. If the Senate doesn't pass that highway bill, 1.8 million highway and transit jobs are at risk. If the Senate doesn't pass the FAA bill, by tomorrow, 70,000 jobs are at stake, and we saw what happened. I visited the airports. It was tragic to see people saying, I had no job. I went to work, because these are all private sector jobs, mostly. There are some government jobs, for example, the FAA inspectors, some of which paid on their own dime to fly across the country and inspect some of the projects. God bless them. And we better pay them for what we did here. And my understanding is this bill doesn't do that, but Congressman Mica claims he's going to take care of that. But we're about to do it again over here if Republicans don't come to their senses. So, in summing up, this is a day for us to make a clear point that America has to start taking care of its people. We all read the papers. We know what's happening to the middle class. We know what's happening to the poor. We know what's happening to our roads. We know what's happening to our bridges. We know that our airport system is the last century. We have to have next gen. We have to move to a GPS system away from a radar system. They say no, 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 no. And the message has to go out to the American people. They blame everybody, and I don't blame them. But right now, it's clear. The Democrats in the Senate want to pass 3 bills, right now. They're all very important. One of them is the emergency FEMA bill to pay for these terrible disasters that have been hitting us. Those are emergencies, and we need to go ahead and respond. 2, a highway bill to fix our deficient bridges, to fix our highways and our roads that are 50% deficient. In other words, half of them are not up to standard. We are living off our grandparents' investments at this point. We have got to invest in our infrastructure and all the jobs that come with it. So we have those 3 bills. FAA and highway have been merged, and then you have the FEMA bill. We are sitting around here not voting. Everybody look at this chamber. No one is here. No voting is taking place because we are the subject of a filibuster, which means a big stall. And again, I ask my friends on the other side, where was your outrage when we were building roads and highways and bridges and airports in Iraq and Afghanistan? Where was your outrage about the money? Where was your outrage about cutting something else to pay for that? Where was your outrage? I'll tell you, I never saw it, I never felt it, I never heard it. And it is, in a way, humiliating for the American people that somehow they are just not as important. Well, I'm here to tell you, you are important. Your jobs are important. Your work is important. America as an economic leader is important. And so I'll be back on the floor to debate any one of my colleagues on the other side who disagree with anything I've said, and that's fine. They may disagree. They may defend why they allowed projects to go through abroad but not here. They may say why they want to cut safety programs from the highway bill that will save lives. And by the way, that transportation enhancements program that they want to do away with was a bipartisan idea that came from Republican John Chafee and Democrat Daniel Patrick Moynihan in 1991. 1991. That sounds like 20 years to me. 20 years we've had that program. Can we look at it? Can we reform it? Can we make it work better? Of course. But don't just stand up here. By the way, one of our Republican friends said, just cut it and you don't even need a vote. Just take it without a vote. No. If we're going to vote on that, we're going to fight about it and have a vote. But let's have a vote. Every minute that this chamber sits idly, let me tell you what's happening outside the real world. This is the fake world in here. In the real world, people are calling one another. What are they doing over there? We have a chance to get these bills done fast. What are they doing? Finally, we get a bill that comes over from the House that is bipartisan, that is a freeze, that has everything intact, that sends a message. We can move forward with FAA for 4 months, 6 months on the highway bill, and we can't get it done. So I urge my Republican friends to change their mind and change their tune and stand up for America and let us get on with the business of taking care of this country, its highways, its bridges, its roads, its airports, its emergencies. And if they do that, you know, maybe we'll see the American people have a little more faith in us, because right now they have lost faith. And I don't blame them one bit. Thank you very much, Mr. President. I yield the floor, and I note the absence of a quorum. Mr. President, if you could wait, I have a...
Senator from California.